Hi creative friends, this is Soraya and thank you so much for being here. So it's a little cloudy outside, so I don't know what the lighting situation is like once this video does get uploaded, but I'm hoping for the best. And I really want you guys to look at the luscious paint quality and what I was talking about in my last video. So let me just explain again what I was talking about in part one. Is this is very cheap lined composition notebook paper, so when you put your paints on here, even after it dries, it does not sink into the paper. So if you take watercolor paper, for instance, even a cheaper grade, but certainly like a very expensive grade of watercolor paper, like say a 300-pound Arches watercolor paper, when you put your paints on the paper, you can actually see it sinking down into the fibers of the paper, and then it reflects back at you and it picks up the white of the paper and it makes it glow, like it has this luminosity to it. Now this paper is super cheap. It's just, you know, cheap lined composition notebook paper, not meant for paint. So when you put your paints on here and allow it to completely dry, it does not sink into the fibers of the page, but it sits on top of it. Now, I used to, you know, when I started taking art classes many moons ago, I had a really great art teacher, and one of the things she said is, hey, you don't have to spend your money on like if you have a budget, I mean, everybody has a budget, right? Whatever that budget might be, you do not have to buy expensive art stuff for everything. Like some things you can buy like really cheap, like, you know, this painter's tape, for instance. I'm not going to go and spend, $6 on it when I can, just get regular painter's tape. Like if you were going to paint a wall, you can go to Walmart or the dollar store or whatever and pick up painter's tape. So this is a cheapie, right? But for some things, you really do want to spend your money on it. You want to go the extra mile. One of them is brushes. Like, my art teacher stressed, hey, it's better to have 3 great brushes rather than, 50 crappy brushes, right? So that was a long time ago. And another thing she said was your substrate, your papers. And I think this was a watercolor class. So obviously in watercolor, in classical watercolor, your paper is super important, right? Now, that being said, fast forward to present day, and, when I went to Oaxaca and I took a class with Connie Solera, it really turned so many things that I had in my head, it turned it upside down, right? Like Connie is very specific about certain brushes, but then on the other hand, she also uses cheap brushes because cheap brushes have their good qualities as well. And another thing that Connie uses is just a really cheap rag, like a dishcloth rag, right? Like it's just a cotton, it's a rag, but when you dip it in water, or even if you use it dry and you scrub on your paint, it gives you a certain kind of mark. It's just like a cheap brush. It's going to give you like a certain kind of expressive mark, right? And even with Connie, right? We went to an art shop, and I think it was called the Frida Kahlo art shop, and we bought cheap poster paints, and I think this is one of my paints from Oaxaca, right? And Connie said, yeah, cheap poster paints, they have their good qualities too. Like she uses more expensive paints, of course, but she also uses like super cheap poster paints. They're really vibrant. They've got like a certain kind of paint quality to them that you can't always get, right? Like in other paints. So now what I'm seeing is that everything has their good qualities and their pros and cons, right? And it's not like I'm gonna write something off just because it's cheap. So that being said, I'm sorry for that long roundabout kind of way of me saying it, but I think all of this is important in how we see our art supplies. So when I took this class with Amanda Grace and she talked about these cheap lined composition notebooks, I became addicted to them. And there's so many great reasons for buying them and using them. And And another great thing is it's so portable, you know, you just stick it in your bag. You can have like 10 of them in like different places, like one in the car, one in your bag, one in this, one in that, one wherever, right? Like you can just, because they're so cheap, right? And, but anyways, getting back to what I was saying, I'm gonna bring this up closer and hopefully you can see. Now it's completely dry, but do you see how the paint like sits on top of the page? It does not sink into the fibers of the page, so there's a sense of like unfinishedness and vibrancy and rawness and immediacy that you can get from using this kind of paper rather than a more expensive kind of paper. And I know Bristol paper kind of has a similar quality because when you have Bristol paper, it does not sink into the fibers of the page. Like you run your hand on Bristol paper and it's got like it's almost like not a shiny quality, but it kind of has like, it's non-porous kind of, like it's totally different from say a mixed media paper, watercolor paper, etc. So I love that about this paper. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just use a cheap ballpoint pen. This one here is, I don't even know what it is. There's no, it's so cheap. There's no markings on here. This one is a Sharpie S-Gel pen, but it's still, you know, it's not an art pen per se. It's just to write on. But you can use like just a cheap ballpoint pen for this, right? And because this paper, you know, it is for writing. And then when you use chalk paint on top of that, it really just makes things like go like so much easier. And there's lines on here, so you can like journal, you can make all sorts of patterns. So let me just see what I want to do here. So I just want to make some patterns here, you know, nothing over the top. I like the mark making of my pen, and I'm using blue just because, you know. And let me see here. So, you know, I'm gonna write here. Okay, and I can write on over top of the collage. And I love adding text to my work, you guys, because it's so personal. You can like actually journal, you can write lists, you can write your morning pages, you can do whatever you want to do. And it's like, now it's a part of your art, right? Like it's just like, it's, you know, writing is just, it's your mark, it's your personal marks. So I'm just going to, and if you are worried about, you know, somebody like reading what you've written, then, you know, you can just cover it up with paint, like partially, you know, so just let little bits of it show through. You can write poems, you can write, I used to do this all the time, you guys. I'd write like to-do lists all the time, grocery lists, like whatever. It's just your writing that's on the page, and it's just a really good use of your time and of your resources, right? And you can use it later in your art. So I'm looking for my Posca markers, but I don't know where on earth they are, honestly. So I have this like fat Posca marker that I'm just gonna use, and I just want to kind of add a little bit of just mark making, you know. I just want let me see here. I kind of like, one of the things I love about using this particular substrate, like the Cheap Line Composition Notebook, is the fact that it's, you know, there's no, like for me anyways, there's no like, oh my God, like this is a really expensive book. And like I have books, watercolor books, mixed media books that I purchased, like say from, you know, a museum, like, you know, like one from the Uffizi, one from this place and that place and whatever. And I'm like, every time I go, like before I use it, I'm like you know, like when it's new, I'm like, oh my God, like I don't want to mess it up, right? Like, you know, there's just this like initial like, oh my God, like it's so precious. But with these books, I'm just like, yeah, whatever, you know. And that has its you know, that has its good qualities too, right? Like you're not worried about, oh, I'm gonna mess it up. It gives you that sense of like fearlessness, like ease, freedom to just like, yeah, I'm just gonna do whatever. And see, you guys, honestly, right? Like, just say I had to leave this like this. I'm not going to, because I want to work on it some more. But just say I was gonna leave this like the way it is. And I might want to pull some of this up here. I am totally okay with this being an art journal page. Like, I really love it. Like, there's this unfinished, like unpolished kind of quality to it that I'm really kind of, ooh, I love that, you guys. So I am really appreciating the fact that I've been using my painter's tape more and more. Now, with the cheap line composition notebook, I've got to be extra careful when I pull up my painter's tape because, you know, it is a cheaper grade of paper, right? So I hope that one of the things I've conveyed in this particular video is that, like, when I first started painting, you know, and I don't want to say this in a bad way, you guys, if there's any watercolor artists watching me, but watercolorists can be kind of a bit snobby at times, at least when I started taking classes. They, you know, that was the, like, that was, you know, there is this like, well, you can't do this and you got to do this and you have to retain all your whites and you can't use you know, like gouache to bring your whites back. You've got to keep the white of the paper. There's all these things in classical watercolor. I don't know if that has changed over the years, but certainly when I started taking classes. But one of the things I hope to convey is that, you know, anything has its good qualities that you can use to your advantage. So like, for instance, like Connie using just a dishcloth, she swears by that, you guys. And it you know, like once you get paint on it and water on it and it's old, it's hardened actually. It's like it's not even soft anymore, it's hardened. But I've seen Connie like work magic with it, okay? She just puts it on her paint and then she like scrubs things out and she makes marks and she, oh my God, it's craziness, okay? So I hope I've conveyed that, hey, you know, anything has like intrinsic qualities to it that you can use to your advantage. Find out what those qualities are. It's like, you know, if I had just written this off, which I kind of did, I never even thought to use a cheap line composition notebook in my art until I took this class, right? And but you know, you just look and see like, what are the qualities of this, you know, whatever it is, and how can I use that to my advantage in my art? You don't have to spend money on everything, right? Anyways, you guys, if you've watched all the way to the end, thank you so much. I'm still going to continue working on this. I'm really happy with where it's going, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.